bring up a woman who just is the creme of the creme of storytelling. You want to know how to tell a story, you're interested in doing it, lean closer, listen, keep those ears open. She is astonishing in every way. Really, her storytelling skills are mad, as they say, mad. And she told a story a few weeks ago, and this is a continuation of that story. I can say no more than it's just always an honor to have her up here, listening to her stories. Always contributes to the Salon. Miss Libbe HaLevy.
2 weeks ago, I told a story about having been writing instructor this past summer at Camp Cadi, a camp for girls who had been sexually abused. This is the other story that took place at the exact same time. After much difficulty, I had arranged house and dog sitting for my trip when I got an email from my friend Donna, whom I hadn't heard from in over a year. She wrote that she could have used the house sitting opportunity. I immediately called her, and she admitted that she'd been living out of her car. Donna and I had known each other more than 30 years. Back then, she was the one we all envied. She was beautiful without trying. In her 20s, she owned a house. In her 30s, a 3-flat apartment building. She married an internationally famous writer, and they wrote together, had movie deals, a TV series. She seemed golden. Then, in the wake of a bad divorce and some worse financial decisions, she became a homeless single mother with an 8-year-old boy. I lived in a bigger house back then and let them stay with me 2 days a week for a year and a half until she was able to get back on her feet. With her son now 1 year into college, she'd obviously slipped again. I canceled my house sitter and told Donna to show up an hour before I had to leave for the airport so I could orient her to my quirky little place. I put together a gift basket that included a mug in her old dish pattern. These Italian ceramics were no longer made, but every time I'd come across a piece in a thrift store, I'd buy it for her. It became a little joke between us. She showed up more than an hour late, with the loudest, most obnoxious basset hound baying and pulling mightily at the end of its leash. My dog freaked out and hid under a bush, and I feared for my neighbor's reaction to this non-stop noise machine. Talking a mile a minute, Donna insisted this was normal, no big deal, ha ha ha. Disturbed by her manner, I drove to the west side to leave my car with friends. I had no other choice. Donna picked me up to drive the final 15 minutes to LAX in a dilapidated station wagon knee-deep in litter. Her manic talking jag continued unabated. She was almost incoherent. I could tell my friend was in serious trouble, but I could do nothing until she got back. I spent a challenging, richly rewarding week at camp working with the girls. The last night, as we dealt with a difficult situation, I learned that Donna had left 4 identical messages in 10 minutes saying that I had to keep her dog for 3 more days. I balked. Our agreement was that she had to be completely out by the time I came home. I knew that after a week of intense emotional input, I would need time to process my experiences and catch up on sleep. So I left her a message that said no, she could not leave the dog with me. I may not have been kind about it. I returned home at the end of a 21-hour day wanting only to dive into bed and go unconscious. But Donna left my bedroom a shit-sty. Bed unmade, pillows thrown all over the room, sheets filthy and stained in several places, wet towels crumpled in the middle of my duvet. I was furious, but the only thing I could do was change linens and collapse. Next day, I surveyed the further damage. Plants crispy and unwatered. My garden hose sliced in half. My dog was crazy and fat, seemingly not exercised in 9 days. Donna left behind the mug and all the nice things I put together for her. Nothing made sense, but I was still too mad to call her. I ran errands and took a nap before I listened to 9 days of phone messages. 3 calls in a row from the same number sounded like a crank or a kid accidentally hitting the redial button, but the 4th was clearly Donna, swearing at me in the worst possible invective. Never had I heard such vicious language out of her, let alone aimed at me. Now, I was scared. To calm down, I put the dog in the car to drive to our favorite hike in the hills. Paramedic and fire department trucks blocked my driveway. When I got out to inquire, a kindly fire captain pointed at the ramshackle Mercury station wagon parked in my neighbor's driveway and asked if I knew whose car it was. Donna's. Then he said, "I'm afraid I have some bad news. Your friend has passed away." I felt a mule kick to my solar plexus and dropped to my knees. I had difficulty breathing. Donna, dead? Her body was in that car only 6 feet away. The dog was dead too, probably from the heat. All I could think of was she killed herself. For the next 6 hours, the front of my home was a CSI scene, the yellow tape and all. Less than 24 hours out of Camp Cadi, I called a friend who stayed with me as I gave the same information 4 different times to the fire department, the police, police investigators, and police detectives. I played each of them her phone message. They asked, did she have trouble with drugs or alcohol? Was anything missing from my house? Who needed to be contacted? I Facebooked her son and got him to send me his phone number. I was the one who broke the news to him. Fortunately, he was at his father's house in Sweden, so he wasn't alone. I sent Rader, the ex-husband, more details in an email. Unfortunately, Rader forwarded my email intact to everyone he knew who knew Donna, and the phone calls and emails started. People demanded details. Who identified the body? How did we know it was Donna? It must have been murder. What are the police doing? What was I doing? What was I doing? I was trying to deal with the fact that in the wake of an emotionally exhausting week, for the crime of trying to be kind, my friend of 30-plus years had died in her car in front of my house, leaving an inexplicable trail of destruction in her wake, and maybe, just maybe, I had said or done something that kicked her over the edge. This was a steep and slippery slope. I knew I had to do something. Because of my 2.5 decades of recovery from sexual abuse, I do know how to heal. Within 48 hours of Donna's death, I spent time with close friends in person and on the phone. Booked sessions with my therapist and a spiritual psychologist. Had my naturopath increase my adrenal supplements to handle the stress. Energetically cleansed my house with sage twice, Tibetan incense and Tibetan bells once each. That week, I received 2 sessions of craniosacral somato-emotional release work. I spoke with my shamanic healer and did psychopomp shamanic journey work. Took 1 meditation class, 1 chiropractic adjustment, 2 energy healings, and biomechanics session to move my body's locked energy. Then 2 old-timers from AA sat me down and explained to me how blackouts work, and that much of my friend's hurtful behavior might have stemmed from hidden alcoholism. Indeed, the one thing missing from my house was a dusty bottle of Slivovitz plum brandy. The friend who stayed with me that first evening had mentioned that the mug was the same pattern as her dishes. I gave it to her. I threw away the sheets. I deleted the recording. I cut myself off from her family and friends as a source of information. Dealing with the grief of others re-traumatized me and was not my job. I stopped even mentioning what had happened. That was the first 9 days. By the time of Donna's memorial service, I was back to being myself. Almost. We spent 3 months not knowing how she died. The coroner's report was released just 2 days ago. Coronary artery disease and acute ethanol toxicity. In other words, at 57 years of age, Donna drank herself into a stupor, had a heart attack, and died alone in the front seat of a decaying, trashed-out car that was the only home she had. At the horror of that thought, some concrete casing that surrounded my heart cracked and fell away. Finally, I knew. Nothing I said or did had any bearing upon her death, and to think otherwise would be pure ego. A short time ago in a local Goodwill store, I found another one of those mugs. It was in perfect shape, no chips or cracks. It was only 99 cents. I did not buy it.
Libbe HaLevy.